Welcome back to Hardball. Maybe the only people more depressed than Republicans today are comedians. They're not going to be able to miss out, perhaps, on the comedic potential of a Romney administration. They also lost some old friends last night. Todd Akin, of course, Alan West, Joe Walsh. Well, Bill Maher warned us about the risk last week. Let's take a look.
So that's it. That's the election. It is your choice, America, because for me, it is a win-win. If it's Obama, America wins. And if it's Romney, comedy wins.
Well, last night, America won. Comedy lost, you might say. Bill Maher is the host of Real Time, an amazing television show with Bill Maher on HBO. So, Bill, Karl Rove, I think, has offered some material. Is he the Baghdad Bob of the 2012 election, the last guy to admit something's new and something bad is happening?
It was a little Hitler's bunker, wasn't it? I really wanted to rush in with the cyanide capsule there. I thought he was going to say, I do not want to live in a world without National Socialism. Okay, Mrs. Goebbels. But, you know, I think that gets to a bigger point there, Chris, which is that Republicans have to start getting their information from a better source than Fox News. I'm not kidding about this. I think this really screws them up. You know, all year long, we have had this segment on our program called Dispatches from the Bubble. Yeah. We actually had a bubble made, and we put a Republican in it. And, you know, with the Rasmussen poll, they actually closed the last hole in the bubble. Now they have their own polling.
Yeah, I know.
They believed it right up until the end. They were shocked by this election. They have to somehow fix the way they get information, because they only talk to each other and they don't know what's going on in the real world. And they were rudely awakened last night.
What do you think it was like to be in that bubble with Mitt Romney in that time after it really, I called it the knockout in like the 6th round. All of a sudden, mid-evening East Coast time last night, it just started to go in that direction, the Democratic direction, just so powerfully. What do you think they were telling him when he's running around saying, this isn't supposed to happen? You guys told me I was winning this thing.
I mean, I think they were still saying, yes, mein Führer, you have 12 divisions on the Eastern Front. I mean, until they actually heard the artillery, I guess I should stop with the
I think Hitler never works myself. It never works. You know that. Anyway, look, Dick Morris predicted, or let me give you a break here. Dick Morris predicted a Romney landslide as late as last week. He said the polls were totally wrong. Let's do Mr. Morris.
In Florida, the Times says Obama's going to win by 1. But their sample has 7 points more Democrats than Republicans. So that poll is off by a factor of 8. So instead of Obama winning by 1, Romney would win Florida by 7. In Virginia, they have Obama winning by 2. But they have 8 points more Democrats than Republicans, and historically, there's 1 point more Republican than Democrat. That's off by a factor of 9. Romney wins wins Virginia by 7.
So you are standing by your prediction of a Romney landslide?
Absolutely. Romney will win this election by 5 to 10 points in the popular vote and will carry more than 300 electoral votes.
Well, that didn't want to happen. You know, I just wonder about the way people use jargon to establish their preeminence. Have you noticed he says not by 8 points, but by a factor of 8 and a factor of 9? Is that supposed to give you some sense that this guy has a different kind of whatever, I don't know, slide rule he's using? What is this anyway? Your thoughts on Mr. Morris?
I mean, last night was a victory for pot, for gay marriage, and for math. You know, these people have denied facts and math. I mean, one of the big arguments that they put forward for not doing anything about health care was, why are we messing around with the greatest healthcare system in the world? I don't know, maybe because the UN ranks at 37. You know, outside of the bubble, there are facts. I know they're not in the Bible, but can't we use them sometimes? I mean, I think this is what it's going to have to come down to. And, you know, when Obama made that point in his victory speech last night about the little girl with leukemia, yeah, I thought, you know, yeah, I wish he'd said that during the campaign. It really comes down to that. One party in this country says, we are going to work backwards from the premise that little girls don't die from leukemia if we can all prevent it. And the other party says, no, you know, that's kind of collateral damage because we love unfettered capitalism. And America just, I think, has decided, no, you know what, we are a modern country. I made fun of the Democratic slogan, forward, one word, what is that? But at the end of the day, people who don't follow this very closely like we do, just came down to, yeah, forward. Yeah, you know what? I'm not crazy about him, but let's keep moving forward.
I think you're right. I don't think it was about him. I think it was their attitude toward their country and their time they live in. Anyway, Donald Trump took to Twitter last night, trashing the election returns. Here's what he said, quote, on Twitter in real time, to use your phrase, and he lost the popular vote by a lot. This is talking about the president, and won the election. We should have a revolution in this country. More. Donald Trump tweeting, this election is a total sham and a travesty. We are not a democracy. And more, we can't let this happen. We should march on Washington and stop this travesty. Our nation is totally divided. Well, later tonight, Mr. Trump deleted all his tweets. Your thoughts?
I mean, it doesn't deserve thoughts, because these aren't thoughts. I mean, as soon as Obamacare really kicks in, they really need to get this man to a hospital. I mean, there is something going on here. I think it's that bovine thing. I don't know if mad cow. I don't know what you want to call it. But the people in Atlanta do some amazing things with neurological workups. He needs one. This guy only 2 years ago was like apolitical. Right? I didn't even know what party he was. I don't know if he knew what party he was. Now he wants to march on Washington. This is so it's not democracy when your candidate loses. This guy is just a clown. I mean, I can't believe NBC is going to stand by this guy.
Well, I hear he's still looking for the college records of the president, because he thinks that somewhere in the transcript will be information on him being a foreign student. He's still on this trail. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the real, let's say, colorful factors here. People, Joe Walsh and Allen West are gone as of last night. Murdoch and Aiken are not going to get back in there. They're gone. Here's what you tweeted, Bill, last night about somebody else we know well, and I think we helped create it around here. I'm pulling for Michelle Bachmann in Minnesota. Can't lose all the punchlines in one night. Michelle Bachmann has staying power, we must admit.
Well, she won like by 500 votes. But, yeah, I mean, it's very hard to unseat any incumbents. That's one of the problems we have in this country, is that people are always complaining about Congress and they hate it and they give it a 9% approval rating and then they vote the same people back in every time.
So you spent $1 million backing, you spent $1 million, Bill, which I'd never imagined giving to anybody or anything like it. You gave $1 million to the Obama effort, Obama Super PAC. And these guys on the other side, the Koch brothers, Charles and David, they gave a couple hundred, I think, million. And then you've got Sheldon Adelson gave, God, how many much he's given. Right. Of course, he makes it every hour for the casinos in Macau. But this money, you know what I liked about the election? No evidence whatever that TV advertisement had anything to do with the results. The people don't pick their presidents from 30-second TV ads. I don't think.
Well, we don't know that. I mean, what was important about, I thought, giving to Obama and giving it early was defining Mitt Romney back then in February and March and April and letting people know who he was, especially in those swing states. And another thing I tweeted last night was, since we have sort of made these 10 swing states the deciders in this election, since they're the Simon Cowells here who decide who wins the singing contest, since Obama basically ran the table in the swing states, shouldn't that be considered a mandate, Chris? I'm asking you, Chris.
Yes. Yes, it should. Okay. Let me ask you about some of these surprises. It's almost like your audience got to vote last night, as if your view of the world was out there triumphantly. Maine and Maryland, first states really, and perhaps Washington will turn out, Washington State, will have actually voted for pro-gay, for same-sex marriages. Right. It won't be the courts. It will be the people out there going into the voting booths. You've also got the marijuana thing developing. I always wonder about what people are going to do, and it says you can only have enough for, one person if you're stopped by a policeman, and what happens if 4 or 5 people are in the car? Do they divide it up quickly? Or I don't know how do you enforce some of this stuff, but I don't want to be taken lightly. But these new laws are going to be kind of frisky to enforce, I would think. Your thoughts?
Well, I can certainly answer your questions about one person and how you divide it up, but that's for another day, Chris.
Okay.
As far as the laws themselves, I mean, fantastic. I went out and celebrated last night. This is really America moving forward. And what I find so ironic is that the people who hate this, the Tea Party people who want to restore America and have the country go backward, they're always the liberty people. They're always talking about liberty and don't tread on me. This is liberty. Liberty is deciding what I put in my body, how I want to get high, who I want to marry, who I want to be with. This is actual liberty. They just don't get it.
You mean freedom you can feel?
Freedom, actual freedom.
That's
yes.
what I know. I've thought about that a lot. And by the way, I'm glad you finally said it. Bill Maher, freedom. It was when you were a kid and you got to leave the house around 10:30 at night. You're going out, and that you always figured one of your parents would put their hand on your shoulder and pull you back in, and you just kept going. That was freedom. That sense, nobody's pulling me back in the house at night. I'm going out at night. That was my version of reality. Anyway, thank you, Bill Maher. You're the best. I love being on your show.